I've thought this for a long time. Like if I could give myself grace, the same grace that I give to my friends and the people around me, like how much easier it would be on me. Because I'm pretty brutal with myself sometimes, and like how I think about how I screw things up. And I think that's useful in some ways to be critical and to think of those things, but I tend to beat myself up too much, which probably a lot of us do.
You are listening to the Go Earn Your Salt podcast, brought to you by Salty Electrolytes. On this podcast, your host, Riley Rogers, explores the stories of people who get after it, get things done, and earn their salt. You will hear from high achievers who discuss what makes them tick, how they got to where they are today, and where they're headed tomorrow. Perhaps this podcast will help you go earn your salt. Today we're back again with Jeremy Jungle Cat Corbin, Whitehouse, Texas, to Jungle Cat Jiu Jitsu. We did a part one on this episode, and in the part one, we got to know Jeremy. We got to know about his business startup of starting a new martial arts school down there in Whitehouse, and got to get a glimpse of what it takes to really start a business. It's a challenge, and there's some hurdles in that. And in part one, we discussed all that stuff. And so part two is just a continuation. It's an update of what's happened since then. So we recorded that episode, aired back in the middle of October last year. So we've got 6-7 more months since then, and we're going to get an update from Jeremy. So welcome to the show again, Jeremy.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so fill in some gaps for us here. What's been happening since last October?
Okay. So, man, I don't know if I maybe had one student when we first talked. I don't even know if I had one then. Right now I think we're up to 16 students. So we're moving along. Things are progressing in the right way. We've started our kids program. I think we got five kids in our kids program, and the rest of the students are adults. Working one of my students is a black belt in karate. He runs a karate ministry through his church. And,
interesting.
So yeah, like once a month he'll bring his karate team down, and we'll do a jiu-jitsu lesson together with his whole team. So that's been fun, been cool, and like just to see he's got adults and kids, but to see their reactions to the solution jiu-jitsu have for a problem versus karate is, well, like you'd imagine, it's quite a bit different, like different strategies. So yeah, that's been fun. Those connections have been great. Like the culture here has just been amazing. Like the students are awesome. That's been going really great. I still need a bunch more students, but
Sure.
We're on the right track. Yeah.
Where have you been finding clientele? Because this is the problem that every business owner has, right? Is trying to find out, where do you go? Where do the people who need your service exist? What have you found?
Yeah. It's interesting for me because when we first opened, we did a soft opening, and we were open for a couple months, and essentially no one showed up. So me and my wife, who runs the gym with me, she just got her blue belt, by the way. Basically, I was doing private lessons with my wife, which was awesome, but not what we're trying to do here. And I did a free seminar for the jiu-jitsu community here. I did like an hour and a half on Kimura and Kimura Trap, and brought some of the people in town to just be aware. And so my first students were a result of either the people that were at that or them telling someone else, like, hey, this guy's got a little bit different thing than what we're doing here. And so and then those students have started inviting more people. And so the bulk of my adults have been that way. Like this person knows about somebody else that's interested in we've ran a self-defense seminar. Brittany and my wife Brittany and I went around, and we introduced ourselves to a bunch of of the local businesses, nearby, handed out flyers. We went to some colleges and posted flyer, like we got flyers approved and did that. And most of that effort just didn't produce any results at all. So
Mm.
like it's been word of mouth from the people that went to seminar, or we also I got some sandwich board signs that we put out at the highway every day we do class. And I've had a few people see the signs and are interested in coming in. And then um, my kids have been the parents just Googled jujitsu nearby because the first kid that came in, his dad was interested in, he'd heard about jujitsu on like Jocko and Joe Rogan, and those guys have like the best marketing for jujitsu out there. So
For
people hear
sure.
about it, they're interested in. And anyway, they got one of the dads like Googled it and came in, and his son brought a buddy, um, and then it was kind of the same thing with my second couple kids, and then the other kid was one of my adult students knew a guy that had his son try a jiu-jitsu program. And yeah, so almost all of it's been word of mouth so far. um, we've had some interest by like running some ads and putting out some flyers, but it just hasn't materialized into anything. So but I
Yeah,
know
those
like
are those are
I
long term plays, aren't they?
yeah, and I think that there's absolutely value in that, and like we just haven't quite got that figured out yet.
Yeah, there's
So, and I
something
wonder,
about. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I wonder, like, because I see, like, we're all on our phones probably way too much, and on the internet, like, we see ads constantly, and like, I've never even considered them really until recently. I'm like, okay, well, what stands out about an ad through all the hundreds of ads we see every day, and
Hmm.
so I'm like, we haven't got that figured out yet, but that's kind of where we're at now, is trying to get that figured out.
That we Lindsay and I refer to that as cracking the code. We trying to crack that code, figure out what makes an ad stand out is incredibly challenging. And every once in a while something
Yeah.
will stand out that I just don't understand why it did, but we get good response out of it. And be like, that one was dumb, but yeah, people really like that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we run posts on our social media accounts all the time, and usually we get a couple hundred views, and we'll get a handful of likes on pretty much everything from friends and associates. And but we did one not too long ago where it was just like a bloopers reel of Brittany and I, like just struggling in front of the camera, and
Yeah.
we got like it's like 10 times more views than any other one we did. So yeah, it's kind of funny that's the case.
There's something about that. Yeah, when you show the real person, right, who you really are, and people get a glimpse in that background, and I think that's comforting because they realize, oh yeah, that's a struggle I also have. You get in front of a camera and
Yeah.
you try to say something. I've got about a one or two sentence before I have to cut the scene and start over again, basically, because I'm terrible with talking. Like when I do the salt ads on this podcast, it's super difficult to do. It takes me a long time.
Yeah. No, I totally feel that. The other thing for me is not only am I not good at talking to the camera, but I'm concentrating on what I have to say. And so I always look like I'm in a bad mood when I'm getting in front of the camera. And like, I'm figuring it out. We're getting better. So,
Jeremy, when we talked last, you still had not added the kids program to your school.
yeah.
You did that. When did that actually start?
I want to say February or March. I think February is when we launched the kids program.
Yeah,
Uh,
and so part of your nervousness, and when we talked off air, was just face to face, was whether or not that would be enjoyable to you. But how
yeah.
was that materialized, man? Do you enjoy hanging with the kiddos?
Yes. Yeah. It is. it's fun, and it's fun for a lot of reasons I didn't really expect. One is I'm trying to like figure out games or ways to show kids how to move because people don't know how to move on the ground. Like it's not a lot of it's not natural. So I'm trying to figure out ways to show kids how to move on the ground. And that really helps me explain the movement for my adults sometimes. And then as what usually, because my wife helps me with those with the kids class, and I usually will show her what I'm planning on ahead of time. And sometimes I see like light bulb moments for her too, where she's like, "Oh, it's so simple," and now I get it, you know. And so those have been pretty great too. We were this last week we did. So I have different drills that I do for kids. So my drills typically are it'll be like 3 to 4 moves from a certain position. So like I'll have side control bottom, you know, where I'm showing 3 escapes. That's like a typical drill, and I have multiple self defense drills. So we started one this week, and it's a standard like grip break if someone grabs your arm. And I've taught this to adults quite a bit. And what happens is without someone pulling you, no one gets their base first, which is kind of the most important part of that grip
Mm-hmm.
break. If someone, you know, like if someone's trying to take you, get your feet out in front of you, get your weight backwards, don't let them pull you. So the way I was showing the kids is we started off with tug of war. So got a rope out and we just did tug of war, and then I made some of the kids stand up straight and try to resist being pulled. And so like it's an example of it's a fun way to explore those ideas, which maybe the adults would be open to that too, but it's so easy for kids, you know, and they get it. And so yeah, that's been a lot more fun than I expected. Um, there's times where the kids they're just not wanting to be tough, or they're and they're all emotional, and which is normal. I have kids, you know, the kids are emotional,
Sure.
especially like pre-adult, you know, pre-puberty, like right, like especially boys, they start getting real emotional. And yeah, they were sparring or we're doing whatever kind of drill, and they all want to be the best at it. And if we're sparring, only one person can win, you know. So
Right.
kids are super upset, and you know, but it's it's mostly it's fun though. Takes a lot of energy for me too, because I'm not a super like effervescent kind of, like I crack jokes, and that's the kind of coach I am, or teacher that I am. But with the kids, you got to have a higher energy, and which I think is probably helpful for me too, you know. So, but yeah, that's been good.
This is cool that what you're saying there, because it's, business, I think, sometimes can bring out the best in us and the worst in us, right? But it definitely draws that creativity out. You're talking about developing these games and come up with an idea to explain what base is by using tug of war, right? It's a great analogy, exactly how you have to do those grip breaks, right? You have to get your feet in front of you, and that's the way you phrase that. But the other thing is that kind of getting outside yourself, right? Because you've got a way you do things and a way you teach an
Yeah,
adult class. But man, you get in front of kids now. You got to bring out a different part of your personality that sometimes is uncomfortable when we haven't done that for a while.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I can remember there was a lot of classes with Keith where Keith would teach a move, and he would say, "Go screw it up," and then come back, and then we'll fix it. And I didn't really think much of it at the time, but what Keith knew, what I didn't know at the time, was there's so much detail in this particular movement or escape or whatever we're doing that there's just no way you're going to get it all the first time through. So go work on part of it, get what you can get, and then we'll do it again. We'll, you know, and those. So now that I'm teaching, you know, full time, like that has become so clear to me, and it's also helped me in that like I just break down into smaller chunks for kids. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I won't teach a scissor sweep usually in one go. I'll teach how to get into the position. Let's go practice that. I'll teach like where's the pressure need to go? Where do you need to push? Where do you need to pull? That'll be the next, like I'm breaking it into smaller chunks, and like the expectations of those moves has definitely changed in my mind.
Do you, when you're coming up with these ideas, how to teach kids, what does that study time look like? Because I know with me, man, sometimes it'll happen when I'm just driving down the road and I'm just mulling these thoughts, like, man, how can I get this idea across? What's actually really happening? Do you take time, maybe drive time, or do you have a kind of way you set apart time to just study that and analyze it?
Yeah, it's interesting because my approach is drastically different for the kids than it is the adults. Like I look at videos of moves and different instructors' approaches for adults, and I spent a lot of time like just focusing on details. And but for the kids, it's not that. It's largely like visualization and just trying to think like, well, what is this like? If I what's a physical analogy of what we're doing that might be fun for kids? And so it's just like this mind exercise. And then Brittany is always looking at Instagram and Facebook. She has turned into a jujitsu nerd like the rest of us, and so she's like always looking
Hot
at
diggity.
jujitsu stuff now. And but a lot of her feed has kids games, and there's tons of information on what other people are doing. And she runs the warm ups, and so she is doing all like adding in games that she finds that she thinks fun. So she's always sending me things like that, and I don't I don't usually use that stuff, but it can trigger other ideas. Like, oh, that's a cool way of doing this. So yeah, that happens for me a lot. Um, I also have like it's a 35-minute drive from my house to the gym, so I do have some time to think about it on the way too. But yeah, so
Yeah, I love that kind of focus time in anything I'm working on, man. When I can really analyze how to do something better and understand the mechanics of it, and that'll happen in my mobile oil change business too, right? Where I remember, especially when I was on a truck, it would be analyzing those things of, okay, here's where the tools exist in my box, and I'm sick of jumping up clear up into the truck and walking to the back of it to get this tool that I use every time I get out of the truck. So maybe I should put that one closer to the door. It's
yeah,
little things like that, and martial arts is very different, but it's very the same when you've got these business problems that you're trying to figure out how to deal with, and adapt
yeah,
into a kid's program, or you know everything from what mat cleaners use and what tools you use for that, and
yeah,
all that stuff comes into play, right? And so as the owner, your mind is on all these things, and so there's just constantly, I think that's what we get paid to do, is solve problems, right?
yeah. I totally agree. I also like it's all trial and error too, and I think that when the kids and the parents know that we're trying to make it better for them, there's a lot of grace with like what they're willing to try, and like if things don't go great, like then we just shift gears and it's okay with everybody. So that's been cool and fun to see too, because like sometimes I'll show a thing that I think is going to be really easy for maybe a guard break or something like that. I think it's going to be really easy, and then none of my kids could do it, and
Yeah.
and then I'm like, okay, well maybe this isn't a great kids, or maybe it's not a great beginner kids move. Like maybe we need to get more foundation before we build to that. So I do like there is quite a bit of that too, and this my adults program is my key nights are strictly Team Rhino curriculum. I do exactly what Keith designed the program to be. And I think Keith was really brilliant in that. And so like I really believe in the curriculum that he put out. And then the other half of the time is no gi. And so this is me being like half coach, half teacher, like seeing what I think my students need and like filling in the gaps. And so half the time we're doing curriculum, half the time we're doing the things I think my students need to fill in the gaps. But the kids program is, I'm not using the Team Rhino kids program. I'm doing my own kids program. And so, some of it's awesome and some of it's failing, and like we're growing and figuring it out as we go. So, which is fun.
So you had mentioned before kind of Keith's statement of go screw it up, come back, and how you're realizing that there was more to that statement than just making people laugh. It did usually just make us laugh, right? But
Right.
has there been other things where, how to phrase this? We've all have opinions about how a business should be run, right?
Hmm.
And we don't always see the big picture, so we don't always understand why certain decisions get made. Has there been
Yeah.
things that have popped up that you now as an owner look at and go, oh, that makes more sense why they did it that way now?
10,000 hours is a steep mountain to climb to become a master, especially when the task at hand puts a relentless demand on your body. There is nothing casual about this sport. It's all in, all effort, all focus. It takes a lot from you, but the reward is unmatched. Mastery of oneself, an acute understanding of your weaknesses with an explosive sense of your strengths. Being able to complete the climb to mastery requires the proper nutrition. This is why it's important to take in a potent blend of electrolytes that is in tune with your output and brings strength to your goals. This potent blend is only found in Salt Electrolytes. Salt targets your depleted electrolyte levels with a boost of hydration and health. It gives your body the baseline recovery it needs.
Yeah, I know individual instances of that don't come into my mind, but yeah, I mean, it does. Look, when you're training martial art, and I assume all martial arts are this way, and probably a lot of like just physical training where you have a lot of personal time with an instructor, like it's a business, you're paying for a service, but it's also like you're investing time into each other, which is really personal.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you're paying for tuition for, like lessons, it's easy to lose sight of that person's pouring themselves into me and they have my best interest in mind. And so it's personal in a way that, when you first start doesn't really seem like when I first started going to Team Rhino, Team Rhino was a big school even then, and Keith had a lot of students, and Keith was amazing at like identifying what everybody needed, and I didn't realize that for quite a while, and I did before he passed away. But in retrospect, when I look back on that, like it's so impressive to me. Like, he could be at any time, any student on the mat, he could tell anybody, like, yeah, you need to work on this, and this sucks at what you're doing here, and you should be doing this. And the amount of time and effort he like just poured into students was really impressive. And the more that I do this, the more I see how much effort that takes and how much like just attention to whatever everything that's going on. So yeah.
Yeah, that part of leadership, right, where you recognize what the people who are working with you need
Mhm.
is a big deal, because in the martial arts world you have students, but you also at some point you'll grow to a place where you have employees also, right? And
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you've got another branch of that tree that needs your attention. And I think that's just part of good leadership is, and it's good practice within the martial arts world, of understanding how the team now needs attention, and it can be like in your employees or your students, but you have to do the same thing on both sides of that. And
Yeah.
again, learning how to teach, right? Teaching is a different art form than the martial art itself. You even differentiated teaching from coaching,
Yeah.
which is I kind of would like to hear your thoughts on that, because somebody else I talked to on the podcast did the same thing. They really differentiated between teaching and coaching, and that subject matter is fascinating to me. But that whole idea of leadership, you're there to equip your team, and almost there's almost as a nuts and bolts principle of what leadership is. That's what a leader's there to do, is to empower and equip their team.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah. So when I think of teaching, I think of like you're just conveying ideas. That can be like just explaining a thing. That could be showing a thing. Likely it's a combination of those things. Depending on your student, it might also be doing the thing to them or have them do it to you. But in all of that sense, it's just like you're trying to convey an idea. You're trying to put the idea that's in your brain in a clear way to their brain. And that's what I think teaching is. Coaching is identifying what individuals need and either giving them that thing or pushing them away from the thing that they want to do. It's more like you're guiding someone to what really will be helpful to them. And I think those things are like hand in hand, but I don't think they're the same thing at all. I think that there's really great teachers that couldn't tell you anything about any of the people on the mats or in the gym or across, like anything, but I think the other part is true too. Like I've seen a lot of people that I thought were giving excellent pointers, excellent advice during and after rolls, or maybe they watch somebody else spar with somebody else and they're giving great advice there. But then you watch them try to convey ideas in front of a group and they're terrible at it. And so like those strike me as completely different skills. And
Yeah.
I don't know how unique it is to be good at both, but it does strike me as it's probably more common than not to not be good at both. And then I think as far as leadership, it's you have to be the one like steering the ship. So you're providing like the vision of what we're trying to do. And then after that, it's how can I equip all of everyone underneath me to help them do that. Like it's once they know what we're doing, then it's my job to help them be able to do it. So, I mean, that's maybe overly broad, but that's kind of what I think.
No, I think you're right on the right track, man. And that's developing all those skills at the same time is the challenge. You say you mentioned, don't know how unique it is, but it really is it's not something everybody has. It's something we all have to develop, right? Because you are all these different roles. You're a coach, but you're also a student. You're in the role you're playing now. You're now a business owner. You're a salesperson. There's all these different aspects of the business, that all these different hats you wear. And I've made the joke a lot of times, and maybe you've even heard me say it, but it's not original to me. But the term CEO means Chief Everything Officer. It's like you're kind of in charge of, especially in a small company, right?
Yeah.
You got to wear all these different hats, and sometimes it's hard to switch gears, right? If you're in social media posting mode, and then you've got to stop that because people are showing up for class, and you got to become teacher again. Sometimes that's a hard little mindset to switch gears,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but matter of fact, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Usually on Fridays, I'll come down to the gym. It's just me by myself, and I'm recording stuff for our social media. I'm making videos, creating like scheduling posts, and I had a pair of grandparents walk in. They had seen my sign, and they were wanting to know about jiu-jitsu for the grandchild. and I was in my mind was in the mode of the videos that I was working on, and I did a terrible job, like about what we do. I barely talked about our kids program, and like I did such a bad job. And then like within the like for the next 2 weeks, I'm like reflecting on how I just screwed that up and how I need to do it better. And so, but it's just like exactly like you're saying, like my mind was not in sales mode at all at
Yeah.
that particular time. And so I have some ideas to not screw it up so bad next time. But
Yeah, I think that's an underestimated thing, right? Because we always talk about the technician who wants to become the business owner, and he thinks because he knows the trade that he's going to automatically be good at running the business. And then they're just different things. They're just so different that they
yeah,
almost barely overlap. And that's exactly what I was talking about. Was that it's hard to switch gears
yeah,
sometimes, man.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. It's been interesting for me. I I listen to a lot of podcasts. In my last job, I traveled a lot for work, and so I spent a lot of time listening to podcasts and listening to books and that kind of thing. And there's a thing that I heard from some like bigger entrepreneurs over and over again is scratch your own itch, which I think is like a Tim Ferriss. That's the thing he quoted. But like the point is like to build the thing that you want if it's not available. And I think it's a drastic oversimplification of what needs to happen,
sure,
but I'm trying to stay focused on that too. Like, I want my gym to be the gym culture that I want, like the community that I want. Um, I want the mats to look a certain way. I want the cleanliness to be a certain, like all of the things that I want in a gym. Um, like, I don't want a gym that takes itself too serious, but I also want to uphold traditions and honor who we came from. And like, so I have like a lot of ideas of what I want this thing to be. Um, and sometimes we're killing it and sometimes we're not. Like this is the way it goes,
sure.
but we're growing. So
So, Jeremy, you had mentioned feeling like you really screwed up with the grandparents that came in, right?
yeah.
Did it in how you kind of contemplated that for the next couple weeks? It is
Hmm.
amazing to me how uh, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't sound like they said anything negative to you, but that was your own self reflection, right? Of I
Yes.
really didn't handle that situation well, but then that's now in your head, right?
Hmm.
Did it? It's probably not the first time as a person you've ever done something like that, but how long those negative things will just live there, man, and shaking
Yeah.
that off sometimes is a challenge.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I totally agree. And I think I've thought this for a long time. Like, the, if I could give myself grace, the same grace that I give to my friends and the people around me, like how much easier it would be on me. Cause I'm pretty brutal with myself sometimes, and like how I think about how I screw things up. And I think that's useful in some ways, because I think that like this example of the grandparents, like I did screw it. Like I never heard from them again, and I don't expect I will. And but I'm like, okay, well, clearly they were looking for information for about a jiu-jitsu program for their kids, and they don't know what questions to ask. And like, what can I convey to these people that are looking for what do you do here? What can we expect our grandchildren to learn? Why is that useful? Like, it's so obvious in retrospect, but like at the time, I'm just like, well, what do you want to know? Like, what do you know about jujitsu? And they're like, oh, saw your sign. Like it
Yeah,
was it was awkward. And the signs are at the signs. I don't even think my signs were. I got a sign that's permanent down by the highway, and so I'm assuming they drove by and saw that, but yeah, like, so I think it's useful to be critical and to think of those things, but I tend to beat myself up too much, which probably a lot of us do. But yeah.
I think that's true, man. And it's that ability to reflect and learn from what you did, but then not overly abuse yourself with it, right? It's like there's a
Yeah.
point where it's like, okay, that's what I did. This is where we're at, and this is the new starting point. And here's what I learned from it. Here's what I got to put in practice now, and here's what I'm going to do different next time.
Yeah.
I think that's some. It's a great conversation, man, because I know every business owner does that, right? I've had that interaction with an employee or a customer, or every parent has that same thing where I call it dad fails around my house when I do something where I'm just like losing my crap and I get mad and say something to a kid and I'm like, oops, shouldn't have done that. That was an overreaction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As you're walking this through, Jeremy, we're again 6 months or so of having the gym open. How has mentorship or seeking advice came into the picture? Business owners, I want to talk to you for a second. Do you have a retail space inside your location? If so, I want you to think about something. Your customers are buying electrolytes. You know that, right? The problem is they're not buying them from you. Well, Salty Electrolytes can help fix that with their wholesale program. They can bring these sales to you in-house so that your customers get the electrolytes they love from the company they love, you. All you have to do is head over to goearnyourSalt.com and scroll to the bottom of the page and click Apply for Wholesale. Do it now before you forget. I know your type, I'm one of you. Once again, that's goearnyourSalt.com. The link is at the bottom of the homepage. There will also be a link in the description on this video. And now, my friends, go earn your salt.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've gotten some good advice from Team Rhino and Shirlane Owen. She runs the association, and she's given us some great marketing ideas, and she's talked about some of the struggles that she and Keith had, and obviously, if you and I have talked several things about different ideas. I'm also in a life group through my church, and there's some guys in there that have had success in business, and so which is also super useful to me, like hearing, because I am at a point in my life where I really want to know like a Christian point of view of the things that I'm talking about, and so it's nice to have like elders in their Christian journey that can do that. I've also reached out to several people, and some have been great and some have just been too busy, and I think that's part of it. And you recently gave me the information for Roger Perez, the guy that runs the Carlos Machado Association. He set some time aside and we did like a Zoom call, and he went through a lot of my marketing stuff, and it was amazing. And I think that those kind of relationships are super useful for me. I don't really right now have a mentor for a jiu-jitsu business, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I think it would definitely be, I've been reading books and about growing business, and I don't know what that person is, because, and I've been in contact with people that would absolutely be that role, but they don't really have the thing that I want. And I have a lot of that. I have, like you, I think you're an amazing businessman and you're very knowledgeable and wise about a lot of these things, but you haven't built a successful gym.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean your advice isn't valuable to me. It absolutely is. But like, I'm still kind of looking for, this is a person that has built what I want to build, and they can kind of help me through some of the pitfalls. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, and I can kind of echo that in my whole business life, right? Especially, I've got this mobile oil change company, right? Well, I don't even know of another mobile oil change company, so there is no one who's done what I want to build, and so then I have to go, okay, these little pieces of the pie. I know somebody who's really good at this thing. How do I how do I pick and choose guys who are good at the different aspects so that I can now have a complete kind of picture at the end of that. It's like this one guy's
Yeah.
really good at marketing his mechanic shop per se. So I'm going to get some advice from him. Well, there's some overlap there. So now we can pull that in. And then somebody else who's really good at, putting systems together as far as operating systems for a business, finding mentorship there. And yeah, I don't know if there's a person who can be a total mentor is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I do think that people that are successful that are willing to like help you, like, because not everybody is, and there's people that I've reached out to that weren't helpful. Like that seems really valuable to me. And I think that, try to be appreciative. I also worry that I'm asking something from someone and oftentimes I have nothing to offer in return. And it's one thing if it's like you and I are personal friends, and so I don't mind asking for some of your time and I'm happy to give my time, but like there's people that I'm asking time of that I don't know how I could help them at all. And I don't even know if they see it that way, but I do. I'm asking something for you for nothing in return. And sometimes that feels kind of, I don't know, not awesome, but
Do you
so
ever just
that's,
air that? Just say that to people? Because I can think of several times guys have come to me and ask questions, and I'm just happy to sit down with somebody because I know what it's like, man. And so
yeah,
it never goes through my head on the other end of that, on the mentorships or the mentor side of that
yeah,
bothers me. But I'll tell you what does bother me is when I give someone some advice on something they ask directly, and then they turn around and don't do it. And I'm like, well, you
yeah,
asked. I
yeah,
spent all this time doing this, and now you just disregarded it like you don't care.
yeah,
I've had a couple instances of those, and some of that's my own ego, but some of it's
yeah,
like, why did we do that if you didn't really care what I had to say?
yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So I I tend to thank people for their time, and I think that's so common. Maybe people aren't sincere about it, but I'm sincere about it when someone gives me their time. I don't usually air that I feel bad that I don't have anything to return. I don't do that, but yeah, it's interesting to me. Like I've in other aspects I've given people advice just like you say where they didn't take my advice, and I've wondered because I've been in that situation too where mentors in my life have given me advice and I didn't follow their advice. But it could be that I was so concerned about something I asked five people and the majority went this way. And so I'm ignoring the minority, but like that could be, like
Sure.
I don't know, like there's reasons people don't follow your advice and sometimes it backfires and sometimes I don't know. But
No,
yeah,
it's what's interesting is how much thrill I've gotten though when somebody does follow my advice and then comes back
yeah,
with a report and says, "Hey, I did that thing and here's what it turned into." You know,
yeah.
dude,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, that's
let's
good.
sit down again because that's fun. I love to hear those stories. And so that in itself, if I was going to say, you know, payment for my time, if you will, holy crap,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah. Yeah, I do think that you lean that way where you want to teach people and you want to mentor people. Like I think that's one of your gifts, but not everybody that's successful is that way for sure. And like some people are way more generous with that sort of thing than others. But
Hmm.
yeah, I could totally see that.
Sure. No, I think I say all that to be encouraging to like, don't hesitate to ask somebody or feel bad because you can't or don't know how to compensate them for their time because there's a lot of guys out there I know who, man, if you'll take their advice and run with it and do something good with it, then you can have more, have as much as you want, right?
Yeah. I will say that more often than not, if I ask someone for advice, most people are absolutely like willing to give you a little time. Like, so well, you and I were recently at the Carlos Machado spring camp, and Brittany and I went to a lot of the business and marketing classes there, and there's some of those classes led to conversations with some of those guys have gyms that are just enormous, and that's got 4 or 5 different locations. And I think one guy said his main gym has got 18,000 square feet. And
Wow.
like, it just blows my mind, like some of the success that these guys have. And then, I catch him on a break and I'm like, hey, man, you were talking about this, that, or the other. And can I talk to you about it? And everyone's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, so that's been most of the time, that's the way it's been. People have been so generous in that way. So that's cool. And I think events like that have been really useful for me. Like we did, there was a lot of marketing material in this last camp for those business classes. And so because of that, I've kind of been changing the way our social media looks. Um, and I think part of it is the social media changes.
Yeah.
So what used to work 5 or 6 years ago in classes I took in the past were great for that time. But as the social media changes, then we need to change. And so like if anybody's following my social media and they see that it looks different now than it did, a half a year ago. That's why we took some classes and we're trying to hit the right people and get the right kind of messages out. And those efforts are from those folks, and
Hmm.
those folks are really approachable. So that's been. I don't know if I'm any good at it yet, but I'm trying. So
Yeah. No, I think a lot of it is trial and error. But would you talk about there's this book I wrote or read one time that was called The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster, right? And basically it
mhm.
discusses the ups and the downs you feel in a given day or given week or sometimes every 10 minutes. You know, just man, you have a win and then you have a loss, and you have a win and you have a loss, and that up and the down almost
Yeah,
gives you whiplash, right? As an owner, can you talk about
yeah, man.
some of that?
Yeah, yeah. This week was a roller coaster for us. Like we live in East Texas in this area, and I'm sure it's probably common in a lot of places right now. Like there's this cold or flu going around. It's got a lot of people sick, and so a lot of our students were out of the gym, and some of my students travel, and so Monday I think um, we had 8 people in the gym, and I had some visitors and some advanced guys, and it was awesome. And we had a good class, the really great roles. And then Tuesday, I had one person show up, and then Wednesday, again, a room, like we were probably 10 or 11 folks on the mat, and then yesterday it was just Brittany and I, and so I'm and I value that time where I can help her um like zero in on the techniques that she's working on right now. And
Hmm.
like I love that time, but like as a business owner and as a teacher and a coach, like it's super deflating for me, like because some nights we have 12 or 15 people on the mats and some nights we don't. And it feels like when we don't, like that we're doing something wrong. And and sometimes there's truth in that, and sometimes there's a lot that's with totally not outside of our control.
Yeah.
And I'm also like, we're Brittany just redid our website, and we're getting into doing Google Ads, which is one of the advice that Roger gave us. Um, and so we're spending money and right now not getting any results, and like we're talking about budgeting these things, and like investing for the future. And so like we're spending all this time and money and we're not getting people calling us or coming in. And it's like it can feel really dire sometimes. But then I have an amazing kids class and like we're just on top of the world, you know. So like and those things can happen in the same day, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think actually I think one of the things you and I talked about a while ago, because I was asking, I was feeling a little bit of despair at the time, and your advice to me was just have a plan, have a next thing to do, and as long as you have a plan to work, you have something to do, and that's been really useful for me. And I mean, I always have things to do, but like just focusing on those sort of things in those valleys has been useful. And sometimes I'll call a friend and you know like hey, I need you to cheer me up, or
For
sometimes it's
real.
just like sometimes it's just chatting with a friend I haven't chatted with in a few weeks, and I like I've been blessed in my life to have really amazing friends, and so that's can be really useful for me too. And there are some conversations that tend to be like more of a drag on me, and so in those valleys I'll kind of avoid those things. And yeah, and so also like working out and preparing for class and like studying the Bible and like those things that improve me as a person. Like if I do those things, that for sure helps a bunch too. And yeah, so those are things.
I think that's something that is overlooked a lot, and we always think when we are a business owner that it's all going to be mountaintop experiences, right? And buddy, it is so not. There's just again you mentioned that can all happen in the same day.
Yeah.
I can think of so many instances over the years where that happened in a 10-minute period where I was top of the world and then I get a phone call and all of a sudden now I'm in the trenches. I'm just like I'm slogging through mud and everything's
Yeah.
wrong. And then 5 minutes later I get another phone call. It's like, oh, you sold a new account and it's the biggest one you've ever sold. It's like, holy crap, man, I can't take it. I got to breathe for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I feel that a bunch. Yeah,
Yeah.
right now especially. Yeah.
Well, that's super exciting, man. Well, Jeremy, I love that you came on for an update here because this is I think helpful for people listening who are starting something or trying to grow something themselves, right? And sometimes as business owners, we just feel like we're all alone in that, like we're the only one really fighting those battles. And if you just look around you and see anyone else who's doing life, right, who's still breathing air, they're fighting those battles, but especially
Yeah.
other business owners, man. It's so it's cool that you are willing to share that with this audience. Appreciate that, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been the last time I was on your podcast, I had a good time doing that. And then but I don't see any of your numbers and I don't know who has listened to what. And then like I'll run into a friend or my actually I was back home a couple months ago and my uncle he brought up your podcast. And I had forgotten in the first podcast I was talking about when I was a purple belt that I used to call my shots when I was rolling with people,
Yeah.
and he just thought that was the funniest thing, and I had like forgotten about it by the time I talked to him. So yeah, it's been cool. It's been in I've met a couple of the people that have been on your podcast since, and yeah, it's been great, man. This has been a cool experience. So I'm happy to at least be a small part of it for sure.
Well, I'm excited, man. Like I said, I think this is really encouraging for other business owners, and I want to do a part 3 here, and maybe 3, 4, 5 more months, and just update again. It'd be super cool. I like this. It's a very different format than what I've done in most other episodes, but it goes along with the same theme. It's just not often you could catch somebody at the beginning of a business and then talk your way through the ups and the downs of what really happens in a business. So
Yeah, man, I'd love to. Yeah, I appreciate the support and I appreciate you having me on and as always, your friendship. So this is cool. If we can do it again, that'd be awesome.
great, man. Jeremy, go on your salt, my friend.
All right, man. Bye.
Hey, you've just finished up this episode, and I want to know, are you or someone you know a getting after it, go earn your salt type of person? If so, message me directly on Instagram at the Go Earn Your Salt podcast, and perhaps we can have you on the show. Also, if you like this content, leave us a review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And perhaps this podcast can help you and them go earn your salt.